Have you ever imagined how a single investor can impact not only the financial market, but also politics and society on a global scale? George Soros, with a career full of bold strategies and extraordinary vision, is one of those figures capable of shaping the destiny of entire nations. But is he just a billionaire speculator, or is there something more behind the headlines? Known for breaking the Bank of England and founding one of the largest philanthropic networks in the world, Soros defies conventional logic, combining financial intelligence with a humanitarian vision of impact. In this video, you will discover how he built this legacy, what lies behind his actions, and the mysteries that make Soros one of the most influential and controversial figures of our time. The origin and background of George Soros. George Soros was born in Budapest, Hungary in 1930, during a time of profound political and economic changes. His youth was marked by extraordinary situations amidst wars and transformations. The son of Jewish parents, he lived through the horrors of World War II, learning early on how to deal with the mysteries and challenges of a hostile and uncertain reality. This phase of his life shaped the foundation of his strategic vision, filled with curiosity and an unwavering desire to understand the complex dynamics of society and the economy. After the war, Soros moved to the United Kingdom, where he began his academic journey and got closer to the world of investments, a move that would transform his life and the fate of various markets around the globe. Studying at the London School of Economics was a crucial step in his education, where Soros was exposed to innovative and influential economic theories. During his studies, he met Karl Popper, a philosopher who became a significant inspiration. Popper developed the concept of the open society, which advocates for individual freedom and critical thinking, topics that fascinated Soros. This intellectual partnership was a turning point, inspiring him to later found the Open Society Foundations. Additionally, his interaction with Popper planted the first seeds of the famous theory of reflexivity, which Soros would rigorously and intelligently develop in his analysis of financial markets, establishing himself as one of the sector's most extraordinary figures. After graduating, Soros worked at various financial institutions in London and the United States, building a solid career in the financial world. This initial experience was crucial, as it allowed him to acquire a solid technical knowledge base, sharpening his critical eye on market fluctuations. With a unique and innovative vision, he began to see the market not just as a field of numbers and graphs, but as an environment influenced by human nature and investor sentiment. This approach was unprecedented at the time, as few professionals combined psychology and macroeconomics so intelligently and practically. Thus, Soros was paving the way to becoming an investor ahead of his time. In 1969, Soros founded the Quantum Fund, an investment fund that gained notoriety for its high-performance speculative operations. The Quantum Fund operated with audacious strategies, often counter to market trends, requiring extraordinary courage and precise analysis of economic phenomena. From the beginning, Soros knew how to attract investors willing to follow his risky bets. Over the years, the Quantum Fund achieved significant results, drawing worldwide attention. But what set Soros apart from other managers was his ability to anticipate unexpected market movements, using his theory of reflexivity to understand critical points where investor perceptions become influential. Soros's theory of reflexivity brought an innovative perspective to the financial market. For him, investors are not merely passive observers. Rather, their actions influence the market itself, creating feedback cycles that can distort reality. This means that when investors act optimistically or pessimistically, they end up reinforcing their own expectations, either raising or lowering prices. This view countered conventional theories that treated the market as something purely rational. Soros believed that human nature was laden with uncertainties, making the market an unpredictable space. When applied in practice, this theory helped him excel in highly profitable trades. Among his most extraordinary operations is the famous bet against the British pound, which earned him the title of the man who broke the Bank of England. In 1992, Soros recognized that the pound was overvalued against the German mark and that the British government would not be able to sustain the currency at those levels. With a decisive move, he bet billions against the pound. When the British currency fell, Soros made over $1 billion, an achievement that marked financial history. This operation was a clear example of how reflexivity and market psychology can generate abrupt movements where perceived value does not correspond to reality, and an intelligent investor can turn a crisis into an opportunity. Behind his successful operations, Soros maintained a constant concern for social and philanthropic causes, which makes him unique in the financial universe. Unlike many who simply accumulate wealth, he used a significant portion of his fortune to fund causes of freedom and democracy, creating the Open Society Foundations. This organization supports projects in various areas, such as education, health, and human rights, especially in countries where authoritarian governments limit civil liberties. Soros sees his philanthropic role as a way to give back to the world part of his wealth, promoting changes that he considers fundamental for a more just and balanced future. In this way, he demonstrates that an investor does not need to be indifferent to social issues and can influence positive transformations. George Soros's journey is marked by a powerful combination of financial intelligence, humanitarian vision, and an insatiable curiosity about the mysteries of human nature. Throughout his life, he explored the extraordinary, navigating the highs and lows of the financial market and solidifying his position as an influential and controversial figure. Soros has shown a unique ability to turn crises into opportunities, and his legacy is an example of how the power of ideas can shape the market and transform lives. The Quantum Fund and Soros's speculative operations. The Quantum Fund, created by Soros in 1969, quickly became one of the most influential and high-performing investment funds in the world. From the outset, it adopted a bold approach, seeking extraordinary returns from high-risk operations. Instead of following conventional patterns, Soros applied an analysis based on his theory of reflexivity, considering both investor perceptions and macroeconomic trends. His success lay in identifying points where the market acted driven by distorted perceptions, and he knew how to take advantage of those moments like no one else. With intelligent strategies and a precise reading of economic phenomena, the Quantum Fund stood out by capturing opportunities that other investors overlooked. This fund was an experimental environment where Soros could put his theories and unique management style into practice. Unlike many managers who stuck to technical and fundamental analyses, he explored psychological factors, considering how investor fear and euphoria influenced the market. The innovation in his method allowed the Quantum Fund to operate against the tide, often betting opposite to short-term trends. This approach, which seemed risky to traditional investors, resulted in impressive profits and a reputation for sharp vision and courage. Soros thus became one of the most respected and feared investors in the global financial market. The intelligence and agility in managing the Quantum Fund made it an extraordinary example of how a fund can take advantage of market fluctuations. In a scenario where most sought safety, Soros bet on abrupt changes in economic phenomena that no one else saw. An example of this was the case of the Bank of England, but many other moments marked his trajectory with the fund. In countries with unstable economies, such as Russia and Brazil in the 1990s, he realized that crises could be opportunities for profit. These speculative moves elevated the fund to historical profit levels, with a combination of courage and innovative analyses transforming each operation into a case worthy of study. In addition to profits, the Quantum Fund stood out for its rigor and innovation in hedge strategies, using methods that protected capital in adverse situations. Soros and his team used futures contracts and swaps innovatively, ensuring the fund's security without sacrificing profit opportunities. This control was necessary because, even with a precise market reading, the Quantum Fund's bets had extremely high risk margins. Soros knew that any mistake could mean massive losses, so he protected the fund meticulously. This balance between audacity and security has made the Quantum Fund a reference for success in investment history and an example of financial intelligence and adaptability. Soros was not just a manager. He was also a strategist who understood the impact of each operation on the global scenario. He knew that his bets could influence the economic policy of entire nations, as was the case with the British pound. However, he did not limit himself to seeking individual gains. His speculative operations were part of a larger vision about the market and society. Soros believed that global financial flows could help balance economies, even assisting crisis-hit countries. Thus, the quantum fund not only generated profit, but also actively participated in economic cycles in a way that was influential and, for many, even challenging the norms of the sector. The operations of the quantum fund also brought challenges and criticisms, as its movements impacted local economies and generated controversy. Soros has always been a controversial figure, and many governments and analysts accuse him of speculating against the stability of nations in delicate moments. However, he defended his vision by stating that the market, by its nature, exploits imbalances. For Soros, it is the responsibility of governments and regulators to maintain stability. He simply identifies and exploits points of vulnerability. This pragmatic stance reinforces image as a smart and perceptive investor, but also heightened the mystery and controversies surrounding his operations. In the end, the quantum fund became a reflection of George Soros's personality and vision of the world. His challenging operations were both a test of the theory of reflexivity and a demonstration of his influence on the market. The fund embodied Soros's philosophy, combining curiosity, innovation, and a touch of unpredictability that made it unique. He was able to transform market perceptions into profit opportunities, taking advantage of investor feedback cycles to extract value even in times of crisis. Thus, the Quantum Fund established itself as one of the most successful funds in history, driven by Soros's visionary and influential mind. The theory of reflexivity and its application in markets. George Soros's theory of reflexivity is an innovative approach that challenges the traditional view that the market is rational and predictable. According to Soros, the market is influenced not only by objective facts, but also by investors' perceptions and feelings. Instead of merely reacting to concrete data, people create expectations that directly affect decisions and prices, generating a feedback cycle that distorts reality. This concept, which merges psychology and macroeconomics, suggests that the market is, at many moments, shaped by collective feelings of euphoria or pessimism, creating opportunities that intelligent investors like Soros can exploit. Reflexivity, thus, forms the basis of his unique and extraordinary reading of economic phenomena. In the financial market, reflexivity manifests when investors start to form a view that affects the very course of events. Imagine, for example, that investors believe a stock will rise. The more people buy that stock, the higher its price becomes, validating the initial expectation, which may or may not be realistic. Soros recognized that these perceptions, far from being neutral, directly impact market fluctuations. This effect occurs because investors' beliefs create a feedback loop where expectations become partially responsible for outcomes. This dynamic, filled with curiosity and intelligence, challenged traditional analytical approaches and transformed Soros into an influential and innovative figure in interpreting the market. Reflexivity also applies in times of crisis, when widespread fear leads to mass selling and price drops. In this context, Soros identifies buying opportunities, knowing that extreme pessimism often results in a temporary undervaluation of assets. This understanding allows him to navigate wisely in moments of instability. For him, human nature is as important as the numbers. Investor psychology is often more influential than economic fundamentals. By combining this aspect with his data analysis skills, Soros created an innovative investment methodology that goes beyond conventional practices and explores the extraordinary, unraveling the mysteries of market fluctuations. A clear example of the theory of reflexivity can be observed in economic bubbles, where excessive optimism leads to a disproportionate rise in asset prices, followed by a sharp decline. Soros saw events like the dot-com bubble in the early 2000s as a clear manifestation of reflexivity. During that bubble, technology stocks soared to unrealistic levels, driven by investor enthusiasm. When reality set in, prices plummeted, resulting in billion-dollar losses. Soros believes that bubbles reflect human nature itself, marked by curiosity and the desire to profit, but also by the fear of loss. This cycle of extremes is where he applies his understanding, capitalizing on the highs and lows to capture profit opportunities. Soros's theory also opposes the idea that the market always fairly reflects the value of assets. For him, markets are influenced by external factors such as political decisions, technological innovations, and unexpected events, which cannot always be predicted. Reflexivity helps explain why seemingly random events cause significant price fluctuations. He understands that investors are affected by information and rumors, creating peaks of volatility that, for an attentive and well-informed observer, represent opportunities. This insightful perspective makes Soros a differentiated strategist, with a much more intelligent and comprehensive approach than the traditional buy and hold. Applying reflexivity is a complex task that requires a deep reading of economic trends and collective emotions. Soros developed the ability to identify these cycles over the years, studying both human behavior and macroeconomic variables. For him, it is essential not only to predict the future, but to understand the present in a different way, recognizing the subjective forces that shape the market. This level of analysis allows him to stay one step ahead of other investors, who often cling to rigid data and disregard the impact of perceptions. Thus, Soros uses reflexivity to turn market uncertainties into a powerful investment tool. The theory of reflexivity revolutionized how investors can interpret market movements, standing out as an influential and extraordinary concept. Instead of seeking a supposed rationality of numbers, Soros brought forth the idea that perceptions influence reality, something that many investors still ignore. This concept serves as a reminder that, at its core, the market is made up of people, and people, with all their curiosity and uncertainties, are unpredictable. Soros managed to transform this knowledge into an investment philosophy that transcends conventional logic, proving that to achieve remarkable results, one must understand the mysteries of human behavior as much as economic fundamentals. The episode that broke the Bank of England. In 1992, George Soros executed one of the most extraordinary and famous operations in the history of the financial market. A massive bet against the British pound, which earned him over $1 billion and led to what became known as the day the Bank of England broke. This event occurred in the context of the European Exchange Rate Mechanism, ERM, a structure created to keep European currencies within appreciation bands aligned with the German mark. Soros, with his strategic vision and detailed analysis, perceived that the pound was overvalued and that the Bank of England would struggle to maintain it at that level. The combination of economic and political factors seemed ideal for a large-scale selling operation. Soros's operation began with an intelligent speculative move. He started selling enormous quantities of pounds, betting that the British currency would not be able to sustain its value. Other investors, paying attention to Soros's leadership in the market, began to follow the movement, amplifying the pressure on the pound. This influence was a clear example of the power that collective perceptions have in the market, reinforcing the concept of reflexivity developed by Soros. While the Bank of England attempted to maintain the pound's parity, it had to use its reserves to buy the currency, but the selling pressure proved overwhelming. Soros's intelligence lay in calculating this limit and realizing that the central bank would ultimately yield. The tactic used by Soros in this episode required a deep analysis of economic and political conditions. The Bank of England attempted various measures to maintain the pound's value, including drastically raising interest rates in a last-ditch effort to attract investors. But these measures proved insufficient as the pressure from speculators continued to mount. Soros believed that the central bank's efforts were unsustainable since each new intervention weakened the Bank of England's reserves even further. Consequently, He continued to expand his position against the pound, consolidating a bet that, to many, seemed risky but, to him, was a historic opportunity. This episode demonstrated Soros' ability to transform complex analysis into a practical and profitable operation. The fall of the pound on that historic day proved Soros' insight, but it also had a massive impact on the British economy and the European monetary system. After losing billions of dollars in reserves, the Bank of England was forced to withdraw the pound from the ERM, allowing the currency to float freely. As a result, the pound depreciated significantly, and Soros' position was confirmed as one of the most successful speculative operations ever recorded. This event underscored how markets, guided by expectations and collective pressures, can become unsustainable and how a prepared and sharp-eyed investor can take advantage of these dynamics. The breaking of the Bank of England was not just a financial victory for Soros, but also a demonstration of how market perceptions can influence government decisions. The consequences of this operation were felt throughout the financial system and reverberated in Britain's economic policies. The episode sparked an important discussion about the effectiveness of currency peg mechanisms and the vulnerability of rigid monetary policies in the face of speculative strength. Soros' influence in this change made him a controversial figure, admired for his intelligence and criticized by many who viewed his operation as a speculative attack. However, Soros defended his stance, arguing that he was merely acting in accordance with the system's weaknesses, something any smart investor would do. This argument raised questions about the extent to which speculation is ethical, especially when it affects a nation's economy. This episode solidified Soros as a global impact investor, elevating his status to one of power and mystery. His ability to exploit vulnerabilities in the financial system, unafraid to go against established policies, made him a reference in the investment world. At the same time, it reinforced the importance of market psychology and reflexivity, as Soros' operation against the pound was driven by both economic analyses and investor behavior. This event illustrates how the market is not just a technical field, but also a game of perceptions, where innovative vision can yield extraordinary results. In the end, the day the Bank of England broke became a milestone in the financial market, with lessons that remain influential. The operation demonstrated that, in a globalized world, even the strongest economies can be vulnerable to speculative capital movements, especially when they attempt to maintain inflexible policies. For investors, the lesson is clear. Studying the weaknesses of systems and understanding collective behavior can be a powerful strategy. Soros, with his strategic intelligence and ability to anticipate market movements, solidified his place as an influential and unusual figure, proving that even the greatest economic challenges can transform into profitable opportunities. Philanthropy and the creation of the Open Society Foundations. After achieving success in the financial market, George Soros directed a significant portion of his fortune toward philanthropic causes, a move that surprised many and revealed a lesser-known side of his personality. In 1979, he began funding scholarships for black students in South Africa, then under apartheid. This was the first step in a series of initiatives that culminated in the creation of the Open Society Foundations, OSF, one of the largest philanthropic networks in the world. Inspired by Karl Popper's concept of the Open Society, Soros sought to promote democratic societies, with freedom of expression and human rights, especially in places where these values were threatened. His philanthropic work quickly expanded, covering areas ranging from education to civil rights advocacy and promoting government transparency. The Open Society Foundations operates in over 120 countries, funding projects that seek to combat inequality, strengthen justice, and support minorities. In many cases, the foundation intervenes where governments fail to protect citizens' rights. In Eastern Europe, for example, the OSF played an important role during the transition from authoritarian regimes to democracies in the late 20th century. Soros provided financial and intellectual support to foster a new generation of leaders and strengthen civil institutions. The impact of these actions was significant, helping to promote historic transformations and establish a more just and democratic society in countries that had been marked by decades of repression. Another important focus of the OSF is supporting human rights causes and advocating for minorities. Soros believes that everyone should have access to opportunities, regardless of their background, religion, or sexual orientation. With this vision, the foundation finances organizations that advocate for immigrants, refugees, marginalized populations, and LGBTQ+ groups. Soros understands that these groups, often excluded and voiceless, face a series of challenges and prejudices. With his support, many of these causes gain strength and visibility, promoting extraordinary changes. At the same time, he continues to face criticism from conservative sectors, which see his actions as a threat to traditional structures. But for Soros, this resistance is merely a reflection of the need for change. The Open Society Foundations also invest in education and health, believing that these are fundamental pillars for social development. In many countries, the foundation funds scholarships, schools, and training programs, creating learning opportunities for young people who otherwise would not have access. In the health sector, Soros has directed significant efforts to combat HIV/AIDS, especially in regions where the epidemic is most severe and access to treatment is limited. These investments clearly demonstrate that he sees philanthropy as a means of influencing structural and long-term changes. His vision is that society can only evolve when these problems are addressed comprehensively and inclusively. Soros also believes that transparency and accountability are essential for governments and institutions. For this reason, the OSF finances projects that promote transparency, combat corruption, and strengthen a free press. In regions where government control limits freedom of expression, the OSF works to ensure that the population has access to reliable and independent information. An example of this was the support for independent media outlets in Russia and other nations that have undergone censorship processes. Soros understands that a society is only truly free when its citizens can express their opinions and actively participate in the political process, and the OSF has become a symbol of this struggle for freedom of information. Soros's philanthropic work is not just a way to redistribute his wealth, but to apply his worldview for a more equitable and democratic society. He believes that the privileged have a responsibility to contribute to the common good, especially in times of crisis. In moments of global challenges, such as the refugee crisis and climate change, the OSF has expanded its efforts to provide humanitarian assistance and support to affected communities. Soros knows that these problems require a collective and integrated response, and he uses the OSF as a vehicle to promote global cooperation and combat issues that affect humanity extraordinarily. However, the actions of the Open Society Foundations often face resistance and controversy. Authoritarian governments, especially in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, see the foundation as a threat and even ban it in their countries. Despite the criticisms, Soros remains committed to his mission, asserting that the struggle for a more open society is a duty. This resistance, for him, only reinforces the importance of the OSF's work, as it shows that there are still barriers to overcome. His persistence and determination makes Soros a controversial figure, but also an inspiring one for those who believe in positive social changes. The Open Society Foundations reflect Soros's vision that the world can be transformed when people and institutions come together for a greater good. Over the decades, he has built a legacy that goes far beyond the financial market. His actions show that philanthropy can be a powerful agent of change, and that with intelligence, curiosity, and a clear purpose, it is possible to challenge established systems for the sake of a fairer future. Soros continues to be an example of how power and influence can be used to promote the extraordinary, impacting millions of lives around the world. The controversies and criticisms surrounding George Soros. George Soros, while admired for his financial intelligence and philanthropy, is also a figure surrounded by controversies and intense criticisms. As one of the most influential investors in the world, his speculative operations have often shaken markets and impacted national economies, attracting attention and ire from some sectors. Many accuse him of using his power and fortune to manipulate systems for his own benefit, highlighting episodes like the breaking of the Bank of England in 1992 and other risky operations in emerging markets. For Soros, these criticisms are expected and natural, as he believes that only by challenging the status quo can change occur. However, this positioning is controversial and, for some, even uncomfortable, especially for those who view his actions as a threat to financial balance. Conspiracy theories surrounding Soros are also a constant. In various contexts, he is portrayed as a kind of global villain, accused of financing protests and influencing national policies in countries across all continents. These theories, often unfounded, gain traction on social media and in political speeches, associating him with supposed secret agendas. For Soros, these accusations reflect resistance to social and democratic changes, which he has always fervently advocated. Still, these criticisms affect his public image and fuel distrust among a public that sees his activism as an act of interference. Thus, Soros becomes an extraordinary figure not only because of his financial power, but also due to the aura of mystery that surrounds him. Another source of criticism is the OSF's support for progressive causes and transitioning governments. In regions where there are restrictions on freedom of expression and human rights violations, Soros's foundation plays an active role, funding democratic movements and independent media. This, naturally, irritates authoritarian leaders in conservative sectors who accuse him of interfering in internal affairs and destabilizing governments. In Russia, for example, the OSF was banned, accused of promoting foreign agendas. For Soros, this resistance is merely proof that his work is relevant, as he views the promotion of an open society as a universal mission. But this activism generates controversy, and many leaders and citizens see his actions as a threat to national sovereignty. Criticism of Soros also comes from financial and conservative sectors that consider his speculative operations immoral or harmful to the economy. Soros's bets, which aim to generate profit by exploiting market vulnerabilities, are viewed by some as a form of predatory capitalism. Operations like the one against the British pound and other bets during global financial crises are frequently mentioned as examples of irresponsible speculation. However, for him, these operations are part of the nature of the market and are legitimate opportunities. Soros has always argued that speculation is a market-correcting tool, even if his methods are seen as radical. Nevertheless, these justifications do not alleviate the criticism that his operations have real impacts on nations and millions of people. In U.S. politics, Soros is a controversial figure due to his open support for democratic and progressive causes. He has funded campaigns and movements advocating for civil rights, judicial reform, and gun control, often positioning himself against conservative leaders and policies. This support makes him a constant target for right-wing groups who see his actions as a direct threat. Soros, who was once an immigrant and refugee, has a history of defending minorities, and his activism in the areas of human rights and immigration is particularly criticized. He believes that a democratic society must protect minorities and ensure equal opportunities for all, but for sectors that oppose these ideas, he is seen as someone who uses his wealth to influence politics. Beyond open criticisms, Soros faces a real attack of misinformation, especially in the digital age. On social media, he is often portrayed as the number one enemy of conservative governments, and even the target of conspiracy theories, accusing him of manipulating elections and sponsoring uprisings. These theories, often absurd, create a distorted image of his actions, associating him with global conspiracies. For him, the very freedom of expression he defends allows for misinterpretations. However, he believes that these criticisms are, in part, inevitable and that his commitment to an open society is worth the resistance. Soros remains determined to expand his philanthropic causes despite the numerous voices trying to discredit him. Despite the controversies, Soros continues to be one of the most influential and enigmatic figures in both the financial and philanthropic worlds. He maintains that his mission goes beyond individual interests and that his role is to defend a society where human rights and freedom prevail. Soros understands that his actions cause discomfort, but he believes that it is the difficult and challenging changes that truly bring progress. His legacy is undoubtedly a combination of financial genius and social activism, and the sum of these characteristics makes Soros a unique and deeply controversial character. The influence of Karl Popper on Soros's worldview. The philosophy of Karl Popper had a profound impact on George Soros's life and thinking. Popper, famous for his concept of the open society and his ideas on the role of science and individual freedom, was Soros's professor at the London School of Economics. This initial contact decisively influenced how Soros views the world, leading him to incorporate Popper's philosophy into his investment practices and social activism. For Popper, an open society is one in which institutions allow questioning and criticism without authoritarian imposition, and where individuals have the freedom to pursue their own development. Soros adopted these values as pillars, believing that a truly prosperous society is one that embraces diverse viewpoints and allows for change. The idea of an open society is also reflected in the creation of the Open Society Foundations, the philanthropic network that Soros founded to promote the values of freedom and democracy. Inspired by Popper, Soros understands that societies must be in constant evolution, capable of correcting their own mistakes and adapting to new realities. He believes that without this process of self-correction, institutions become rigid and authoritarian, hindering progress. The OSF works to ensure that different voices are heard and that citizens have the power to question and actively participate in governance. This work is a direct reflection of Popper's ideas and demonstrates how philosophy can transcend academia to become a social movement. Popper's influence is also evident in Soros's theory of reflexivity, which examines how perceptions influence reality. This concept connects with Popper's idea that science advances through conjectures and refutations, that our ideas must be constantly tested and adjusted as new data emerges. For Soros, financial markets operate similarly. They are affected by investors' expectations, which are always in flux. Just as an open society adapts and learns, he believes that the market is a dynamic reflection of human perceptions. By observing these changes, Soros realized that success in investing depends not only on numbers, but also on understanding behavior and the psychological cycles of market participants. Karl Popper also inspired in Soros a strong skepticism toward rigid and absolute ideologies that attempt to impose a single truth on everyone. Popper argued that totalitarian ideologies, such as fascism and communism, stifled critical thinking and individual freedom. Soros incorporated this view, becoming an active defender against authoritarian regimes and in favor of democracy. He believes that societies must be able to question and criticize their leaders and systems without fear of retaliation, and his foundation supports movements and organizations that combat censorship and promote transparency. For Soros, this is an important mission, as he sees freedom of expression as an essential element for human and social development. The appreciation of freedom and transparency also guides Soros in his political actions, such as supporting democratic movements and defending minorities. This posture of Soros is directly linked to Popper's philosophy, which believed that everyone should have the opportunity to actively participate in building their communities. Soros believes that promoting an open society means ensuring that all social groups, including the most vulnerable, have a voice. The Open Society Foundations dedicates a significant portion of its resources to projects that combat inequality and promote inclusion, as he understands that a truly open society does not discriminate and offers growth opportunities for all. Furthermore, Popper influenced Soros to see knowledge as something always provisional, subject to revision. For Popper, human knowledge is constantly constructed and must be challenged to evolve. Soros applies this philosophy to the financial market and his personal life, maintaining a flexible and adaptable stance even after years of success. He understands that there are no absolute certainties in investing or in life, And this openness to questioning is one of the factors that allow him to make risky decisions based on deep and carefully considered analyses. This flexibility, inspired by Popper, is a differentiator that helps Soros adapt to unpredictable scenarios, transforming changes into opportunities. The influence of Karl Popper is thus a fundamental pillar in George Soros's journey, shaping both his market view and his life philosophy. Soros does not settle for being merely a successful investor. He wants to use his power and knowledge to promote a society where everyone can thrive. Popper taught that freedom and the ability to question are the true foundations of an evolved society, and Soros applies this teaching in all his endeavors, whether in the financial market or in philanthropy. In this way, he seeks an impact that goes beyond profits, demonstrating that it is possible to combine a philosophical vision with concrete and transformative actions. Soros's view on capitalism and government intervention. George Soros is a keen critic of unbridled capitalism, believing that the system needs regulation to prevent excesses and crises. Although he built his fortune as an investor within this model, he is clear in pointing out the flaws that arise when the market operates without adequate supervision. Soros believes that capitalism, when completely liberated, tends to create extreme inequalities and promote a mentality of winning at all costs. For him, human nature, marked by curiosity and the pursuit of opportunities, is susceptible to excesses and impulses that ultimately affect society as a whole. Thus, he argues that governments need to intervene at critical moments to prevent the system from becoming unsustainable and harmful to the population. Soros's view is based on his experience with financial crises, many of which he witnessed and even took advantage of as an investor. He sees the market as an unstable environment where perceptions and feelings often outweigh economic rationality. In his view, government interventions are essential to correct distortions that arise during periods of euphoria or panic, such as the collapse of the housing market in 2008. Soros argues that the state must act to prevent these collapses, even if it means going against the interests of large corporations. In his reading of the economy, the government functions as a firm hand, preventing the economy from becoming hostage to the oscillations and phenomena inherent in human behavior. Soros also believes that the government's role is crucial in ensuring that opportunities are accessible to everyone, not just the most privileged. He advocates for public policies to act as a counterbalance to the concentration of wealth and the excessive power of corporations. In his speeches and writings, Soros warns about the dangers of an economy that benefits only a minority while leaving the majority of the population helpless. For him, capitalism is only healthy when its fruits are distributed more fairly. This viewpoint has influenced his philanthropic efforts, as he uses the Open Society Foundations to support projects that combat inequality and promote social justice, contributing to a more balanced society. Soros's criticisms of capitalism also include what he calls market fundamentalism, the idea that the market can solve all problems on its own. He considers this view dangerous, as it ignores the impact of financial fluctuations on people's real lives. Soros believes that without appropriate regulation, the market can create speculative bubbles, devaluations, and crises that harm millions. For him, governments have the responsibility to protect the economy and citizens from these distortions. This position, while controversial, reinforces his commitment to a more sustainable and less volatile economy, where the extraordinary is not seen merely as an opportunity for a few, but as a benefit for society as a whole. Furthermore, Soros criticizes the growing power of large corporations and the influence they wield over politics. He is concerned about how these companies use their resources to shape laws and regulations in their favor, reducing the power of government and compromising democracy. In his opinion, the state must maintain its authority and ability to act so that public interests prevail over private ones. Soros believes that a strong and independent government is essential for regulating the market and ensuring that economic power does not transform into uncontrolled political power. For him, a healthy economy is one in which companies thrive, but not at the expense of freedom and social well-being. Soros's view on capitalism also includes a keen eye on the role of the global financial system. He argues that in a globalized economy, the actions of a single country can generate ripple effects that impact the entire planet. Soros believes that international financial institutions, such as the IMF and the World Bank, should act in a coordinated manner to address these interdependencies. According to him, it is necessary to create global rules that make the financial system safer and less vulnerable to crises. Soros considers this responsibility to be shared by all nations and that international cooperation is essential to build a fairer and more resilient economic system. Finally, Soros sees capitalism as a powerful tool, but one that must be used responsibly. He knows that the market is a space for innovation and growth, where extraordinary phenomena happen every day, but he believes that without a government willing to intervene, the system itself can become a danger. For Soros, conscious capitalism is one that values collective well-being and allows everyone to participate in its benefits. This balance between market and regulation, according to him, is what ensures the sustainability of the system in the long run. Thus, he remains an influential voice, advocating for an economic model that balances freedom and responsibility, creating a society where economic and social progress go hand in hand. The legacy and impact of George Soros on financial and social spheres. The legacy of George Soros extends far beyond the financial market. With a life dedicated to analysis, speculation, and philanthropy, he has established himself as a complex and influential figure capable of shaping not only finance, but also social and political thought of our time. Soros revolutionized the understanding of the market, demonstrating that financial movements are not just rational reactions, but also reflections of human emotions. His theory of reflexivity has influenced generations of investors, teaching them to consider the impact of perceptions on asset value and to view the market as a psychological and social environment, in addition to being economic. This extraordinary vision transformed Soros into a reference point and created a new field of curiosity within finance. In addition to his intellectual contribution, Soros leaves a profound impact on global philanthropy through the Open Society Foundations. Founded to promote the ideals of an open society and combat oppression, the OSF has invested billions in initiatives that seek to guarantee human rights, strengthen education, and promote freedom of the press in more than 120 countries. This work makes him a unique figure among billionaires, someone who uses his fortune not just to accumulate more wealth, but to try to transform the world into a fairer and more democratic place. His philanthropic legacy, which encompasses support for minorities and fighting corruption, shows that it is possible to use success in capitalism to promote causes that benefit millions. In the financial world, Soros's trajectory is a symbol of intelligence and courage. By breaking the Bank of England in 1992, he not only challenged a historic institution, but also demonstrated the power that a single investor can have over the market. This feat became a reference for ambitious investors and changed how governments view market speculation, highlighting the need for regulation in such a volatile environment. Soros inspired a generation of traders to adopt audacious strategies, and his psychological and intuitive approach still serves as an innovative foundation for industry professionals. He is simultaneously a figure of curiosity and mystery, admired and criticized, and his influence is felt in every bold decision made in global markets. Another important aspect of Soros's legacy is his critical view of unregulated capitalism. Even as one of the world's top investors, he does not hesitate to criticize market excesses and advocate for government intervention in times of crisis. This position has been fundamental in broadening the debate about the limits of capitalism and the risks of concentrating wealth and power in the hands of a few. Soros challenges the notion that the market is the solution to all problems, proposing a more balanced and ethical system. His stance has helped make the inequalities and vulnerabilities of the current economic model more visible, encouraging reforms and policies that seek a balance between market and social responsibility. Soros's influence also extends beyond finance and philanthropy to the global political landscape. He uses his fortune and foundation to support democratic movements, funding candidates and initiatives that advocate for freedom and civil rights. In authoritarian and transitioning countries, Soros's presence is both a hope for activists and a threat to leaders who resist change. His political activism has generated controversy and criticism, but he remains committed to using his resources to promote a society where everyone has a voice. This activism disturbs conservative sectors and strengthens progressive movements, reinforcing his role as an agent of social transformation. For Soros, legacy is not just what he builds for himself, but what he leaves for the future. He has declared that the greatest ambition of the Open Society Foundations is to create structures that function even after his departure, ensuring that the work for freedom and justice continues. This thought reflects his concern with consolidating permanent changes that go beyond his own figure. He wishes for his influence and values to remain, serving as an inspiration for future leaders, activists, and investors, and ensuring that his positive impact extends beyond his generation. Soros views his life as an unfinished project, where each action is part of a greater mission to build a better world. George Soros leaves a complex and multifaceted legacy, marked by both financial achievements and social contributions. He shows that success can go beyond numbers and that it is possible to be an investor of positive impact, a visionary who sees the world critically and seeks to transform it. His life and work are a reminder that even in the financial market, intelligence and curiosity can serve a greater purpose. He remains an extraordinary and influential figure, with a trajectory that inspires both admiration and reflection, and whose contributions to society and the market will continue to be discussed for many years to come. The future of George Soros's legacy and challenges for the Open Society Foundations. As George Soros advances in age, discussions about the future of his legacy and the Open Society Foundations (OSF) have gained more relevance. At 93 years old, Soros plans to ensure that his influence and vision continue to shape the world, even after his passing. He has structured the OSF to function independently, guaranteeing the continuity of the projects and causes he advocates. His family, especially his son Alexander Soros, is directly involved in the foundation's administration, signaling an effort to keep Soros's original mission alive. However, maintaining this work in an ever-changing world presents an extraordinary challenge, especially in light of global political and economic pressures. The leadership transition within the OSF is a crucial point for the continuity of Soros's work. Alexander Soros, who has stood out in advocating the same values as his father, serves as vice president of the foundation and is increasingly engaged in issues such as human rights, freedom of the press, and democracy. The continuity of this family commitment is essential to uphold the vision of an open society. However, the success of this transition also depends on the support of local teams, regional leaders, and partners who work directly on OSF initiatives. With a global network of collaborators, the OSF requires effective management to ensure that each project aligns with the ideals of freedom and justice that Soros championed, without losing the adaptability necessary in different contexts. The political challenges faced by the OSF, especially in countries with authoritarian governments, are a test of Soros's legacy. In places like Russia and Hungary, where the foundation's activities have been restricted or banned, the OSF's work faces intense resistance. Many of these governments accuse Soros and his foundation of political interference, treating their actions as threats to national sovereignty. However, Soros and the OSF continue to support democratic groups, human rights defenders, and independent media in various parts of the world. These challenges highlight the difficulty of promoting change in closed regimes and how Soros's legacy must grapple with the reality of a global landscape that, in many ways, resists openness. Another important challenge for the continuity of Soros's legacy is the disinformation and conspiracy theories surrounding him. In an age of social media, Soros's image is often distorted, making him a target of fake news and theories that portray him as a villain or a global manipulator. These attacks not only affect Soros's public image, but also the perception of the OSF. In various countries, the foundation must contend with stigma and distrust, which can hinder access to communities and local governments. The continuity of the OSF's philanthropic work will depend in part on how the foundation can protect itself and debunk these false allegations, promoting a transparent image and reinforcing the positive impact of its actions. In the future, the Open Society Foundations will also need to adapt to new social and economic demands, especially in areas such as sustainability and technology. Climate change and technological advancements present complex problems that require innovative and intelligent approaches. Soros has already expressed concern about these issues, and with the OSF, he has invested in projects that promote sustainability and address the social impacts of technology. The foundation will need to expand its scope to include these new demands and prepare to face emerging challenges. In this scenario, the OSF's role will be crucial in ensuring that technological and economic progress is inclusive and respects human rights and the environment. An important point for the future of the OSF is collaboration with other institutions and governments that share the same values. Soros has always believed in the power of global cooperation to solve complex problems, and the OSF already maintains partnerships with various international organizations. These ties will need to be strengthened so that the foundation can continue to operate in an environment of increasing political polarization. Collaborating with other funds, NGOs, and government agencies will allow the OSF to achieve a broader reach, maximizing project impact and overcoming barriers imposed by hostile governments. This partnership strategy is an essential element for the sustainability and continuity of Soros's legacy. Looking to the future, the impact of George Soros will be measured not only by financial results or personal achievements, but also by the strength of the OSF and its ability to keep alive his vision of an open society. Soros's influence, marked by intelligence, curiosity, and an unusual dedication to social well-being, provides a solid foundation for his foundation to continue promoting justice and democracy. The true challenge of his legacy will be ensuring that these ideas and actions remain relevant and effective in a world facing new crises and demands. In this way, Soros prepares his foundation so that, even without him, the OSF will continue to fight for the values he defended with such determination. Now that you have deeply explored the journey and impact of George Soros, it is clear that he is much more than a successful investor. He is an agent of transformation, whether in the financial market or in society. Through his decisions and convictions, Soros has shown that the power of influence goes far beyond money. It involves vision, courage, and the pursuit of a fairer society. So, I ask you, how can you apply this knowledge to transform your own reality? How can you use your curiosity and intelligence to make a difference? If you want to continue exploring themes like this and learn from other powerful stories, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and stay with us on this journey of learning and discovery.